Hi, and welcome to another episode of About the Authors TV. I'm your host, Jake Brown. Putting your story on the page is brave for any writer, especially when it's as powerfully personal as My Broken Pieces, Mending the Wounds from Sexual Abuse Through Faith, Family, and Love, by Latin American TV star Rosie Rivera, sister of the late Mexican pop star Jenny Rivera. After the two siblings co-starred in the smash hit reality TV show I Love Jenny, through over her million followers on Instagram alone, Rosie has continued to use her influence to focus a spotlight on survivor stories like her own, as well as been praised by Billboard magazine for her handling of being suddenly thrust into the spotlight following the death in a plane crash of her famous older sister Jenny in 2012. Adored by Jenny, Rosie was left in charge of her sister's estate and her children. Catching the writing bug after the success of her first, she returned with a second bestseller, God is Your Defender, Learning to Stand After Life Has Knocked You Down, with Publishers Weekly singing the praises of Rivera's uplifting testament. Her other titles include Upon This Rock, Building a Firm Foundation That Cannot Be Shaken, Rays of Hope, Finding Hope in a Seemingly Hopeless Situation, and Stolen Identity. Former co-host of the Spanish morning show Despierta America and current co-host of the Power of Us podcast. She joins us today to talk about her inspiring story. Rosie, thanks so much for being here. Your family is a very famous one in Mexico, beginning with your late sister Jenny Rivera's fame as a pop music and reality star in her own show, I Love Jenny, which you picked up the baton with when you starred in season 3 of the show, and are now carrying on your family's business into a new generation as a star in your own right. Please give viewers a look inside that legacy.
My parents are Mexican immigrants, so they traveled over here, and Dad was just trying to feed us, and he um, accidentally or God willingly, more saying it correctly, went into music business, and none of us knew how to sing. So my dad had a recording studio. An artist didn't show up. My brother saw it as losing money. So because he was a businessman, he got into the studio and sang. And that one decision changed the course of our family's life. My sister started singing. She passed away 8 years ago, but then everyone else in my family, whether they're believers, pastors, or not, have gone into the music business. I'm the only one that hasn't. I love to speak. I would love to host a TV show. I'm an author. So I'm a little bit different, but still in the same entertainment world.
There's actually a movie being made about her life right now. Where is that in development?
We developed it for Telemundo. Everyone, every network, every Spanish network really wanted my sister's story. And this was one of her dreams. So I have the honor of being one of the executive producers on it. I don't know, I can't believe that that's part of my life, but it is an honor. And it aired in Telemundo. And it was the first time that Telemundo beat Univision primetime was with my sister's story. And now that it hit Netflix, it was the only non-original, not Netflix original, that was top 10 for one whole month. It's completely in Spanish. If people saw it with subtitles if in a different language, but it just surprises me. And that's a good story, get me, because a lot of people didn't know who Jenny Rivera was in that sense. But now it's expanded all over the world, and what we've always wanted to put in that good story. And for me, it's more than just a girl from Long Beach. It's what God did with that girl from Long Beach.
Please take us back to the moment when you made the brave decision to share with the world My Broken Pieces, Mending the Wounds from Sexual Abuse Through Faith, Family, and Love.
The person that planted the seed for me to write this book was my sister. When I first told her about the sexual abuse at 16, she, even though she was distraught, she was in so much pain because it was her first husband, and he not only abused me, he also abused his own daughter. She had this idea. We were telling the police officer, giving a full police report, and it was my first time saying things because I had sworn, I had made a vow to myself that I would never ever speak of this topic, that I couldn't even write the word rape or molestation, much less say it out loud. And I'm over here crying, and my sister turns around and looks at me. She's holding my hand, giving me the strength to talk to the police officer, and she says, "You should write a book." I said, "Girl, you are crazy. Look at us." I was 16. I was a mess. My brothers wanted to kill him. She was hurting deeply. My mother was trying to hide the story because she was going through the shame of it. And I said, "What story is there to write here? This isn't an interesting story." And she said, "It's because it's not only your story. It's the story of millions and millions of people. And that stuck with me. And every year she would call me and she would say, "Hey sis, are you ready?" And I'd say, "No, I'm not." I was going a down spiral. And she allowed me to go through my journey, and I love her so much because she respected my story. My story was mine to tell, even though it was her ex-husband and even though it was her daughter. So she waited until I was ready. And I think that's so important, that we wait until we are ready. I have met people that are ready day one, a 7-year-old that was ready that day and spoke up. But I've also met people that are 80 years old that have never told a soul. And that after I speak, they go and hug me and say, "Thank you for telling my story. I don't want to tell it, but you telling it really brings peace to my heart." So that's why I wrote the book. When I realized there are still people hurting, there are still people that don't have a voice or aren't ready to speak it yet, but there's a comfort in being a part of a community, even if it's underground, so that we don't feel so alone. And I opened up about so many things, not only about the sexual abuse, but my mistakes in dealing with it. I made some mistakes. It's not all the abuser's fault. I did the drinking. I had the abortion. And I want people to learn from my mistakes, or at least if they choose to do some of them willingly, how can we help this a community as a whole. And it gave me also great relief to be able to kind of let it all out.
That is part of the therapeutic beauty of writing, though, isn't it? Faith is a key word in the title. How did yours help you through the process of sitting down and putting your story on paper for the first time?
The faith that, I mean, just the word that all things serve for good for all those who love God and are made for his purpose. I had to check the list. Like, am I made for his purpose? Do I really love God? Like, then I could know this is going to work for good. Because sometimes speaking, writing, putting your whole life on paper isn't going to have the result that you want, not only in sales, but in people's reaction. Some people will not agree. Some people don't want you to talk about their story, in a sense of like, I want to ignore it. So you bringing it out so publicly is in my face. So all those reactions, including my family's, weren't necessarily what I expected. So I had to remember, this is going to work for good, for me, for my children, for other people that have been hurt through abuse. And that faith of God, I don't see it right now. I don't, but I believe you and I believe your word. And just knowing that he died on the cross for me, and that it was for my salvation but also my healing. Those things that other people say it's not important, just forget about it, it happened when you were 8, no big deal, you're 40 now. For Jesus, it's important now. And I that faith really let me know I'm not over exaggerating and I could deal with it. This is something that has a solution, and if I knock, I'll find it. And that's what I really want to give other people. There's hope. There's hope, and there's different ways of you knocking. Like, yes, faith is super important. God is all powerful, but what's your responsibility in finding your healing? And so I take them through that in the book also.
The Power of Us podcast, which you co host with your husband, grew out of the success of this book. How many people has it reached and helped so far?
Well, I have been very blessed with a very resilient, loving, merciful man. And I knew that that's what I needed. I know I needed a merciful husband because I was dealing with post traumatic stress disorder, trauma, depression, and then drama with my family. So I knew a lot of it stemmed from the my past that he had no fault in. And so I know that a lot of people that have gone through abuse or gone through an injustice are afraid to tell their partner. They don't want to sound dramatic, over emotional, but they're dealing with a lot. So the podcast comes out of your partner, whether he knows it or not, is living through war with you. He is on a battleground and he can step on a mine in any minute and not know why. He doesn't know why you are shy or don't want to talk about certain topics. If you're not ready to tell your husband, um at least listen to a podcast that he could understand, because our podcast is very open, very raw, very real about things that we go through together. And we always imagined, what would we like someone to tell us before we got married? What are the real real topics that happen in marriage that we wish someone had warned us about, especially coming with the background of abuse, that where we can really let people know a healthy relationship is available for you. There's a process and a responsibility, and it takes work, but it really is available. And not pretend that everything's perfect. I'd love to be in a perfect marriage, but I don't know if it exists. And so with the podcast, we help people walk through marriage as a community. Like, oh, you do that, I did it too. Oh, okay, then it's not so crazy or shameful. And oh, you found a solution. And hopefully that's what they find in the podcast.
Publishers Weekly would hail your second book, God is Your Defender, Learning to Stand After Life Has Knocked You Down, as a powerful guide where Rivera offers help to Christian readers looking to heal from past hurts. Was this second book any easier to write now that you had the first one under your belt?
For the second book, there was a long pause because I was going through so many emotions. I started writing the book, My Broken Pieces, before my sister passed away. So I love it that she waited for me. And the year that she passed away, I told her, hey, I'm ready. And she was so proud. And we went through the process, left my job. I was selling Mary Kay just to make ends meet, but still working on the book. And then she passes away in December, and all the air went out of me. I just, I was just shocked. And so in 2014 or 15, a couple years later, I felt God remind me, hey, there are still people that would love to read this story, that need this story to be told, that need a voice. Are you willing? And I said, I'm willing. So I started, and we finished the book, and I loved it. I love my first book, but it was harder, like you said, emotionally. Do I want to write about this? I was taking less risks per se. In this one, I add some humor because it's easier to write. I'm able to not only talk about the difficulties that have happened to me, but also my own mistakes. Like, oh, I did this and I'm a little embarrassed about that. So I don't want to say it's more real. I think both are, but in this one, my personality comes out more because I don't only want to focus on what was done to me. I want to take the responsibility of the mistakes I've made, and then also add some humor in there. And that, in that sense, was easier to write, because I've learned to mature and laugh at myself. So this book took a much shorter time and was able to have a little bit more of Rosie's personality rather than just Rosie's story.
What can fans of yours look forward to getting their hands on in the near future?
A devotional book. I really want something where you get nuggets every morning, a devotional on peace, and then there's like a series in my head, a devotional of grace, and then a devotional on like forgiveness. Those things that are sometimes beautiful topics to read, but executing takes a little bit more time. So if we all read a little nugget of the day, I feel like I can execute forgiveness if it's not so overwhelming. I also want to write a book on facing death. In my culture, we don't really plan for it. We don't even talk about it. Getting life insurance is almost, taboo. And I really want it to be a topic that we start preparing for, because I was so unprepared. It was the biggest fear of my life, but did nothing to prepare for it. And as of a couple days ago, I've thought about writing a book on post-traumatic stress disorder, with regards to abuse. I don't know what it's like to be in actual war, but I have been in emotional war since I was 8. And so even though I have healed from the sexual abuse, thank God, I am now facing either the death of my sister or something other in my life, and I'll get the same triggers. I'm having, bad dreams again. I'm emotionally going through like anxiety. So I thought, maybe we don't talk about it enough. I can't focus on war, but emotional war. I really want to help people take the next step of conquering post traumatic stress disorder.
So it sounds like you see this as the first book in a new series?
The devotional book, I see it as a series of books. I think it's amazing grace, amazing peace, and amazing love, and kind of focusing on those.
When you're not writing books or filming for your show, your charitable work is extensive around the world. What first motivated you to co found Sister Somalia? And please share a bit with viewers about what you find most enjoying about working with that organization.
Somalia was what my sister called me, because my name is Rosa Amelia. So she kind of just smashed it together and made up the word Somalia. And that's what she called me my whole life. And so she was that helping hand that gave me strength. She didn't necessarily have a solution. She wasn't a counselor. She was in pain also, but she was a hand that said, let's walk this journey together in my survival. And so with Sister Somalia, I want to do the same thing. I want to let men, women, children know we're going to walk this journey together. I may not have all the answers, but I can listen to you, but I can support you, I can pray for you, I can guide you to the professionals. So Sister Somalia is that organization made up of other men and women that have been through sexual abuse, and we join together. It's WhatsApp groups, it's emails, it's book clubs, it's private Facebook clubs that we get together and just talk and vent or listen. And with this book, God is Your Defender, with every book that's pre-ordered, we are going to donate another book to a non-profit organization, to schools, to libraries, to jails, to churches, anywhere where someone can find it and say, hey, I'm not alone. And I'm super excited that we're doing that.
You have quite the social media following with over 1 million viewers on Instagram alone and over 350,000 followers on Twitter. What do you feel is the greatest responsibility and joy of having such a prominent platform like this one to reach your readers and fans through?
I see my platform as a responsibility. I have a responsibility. Yes, most people go online for entertainment, usually mindless entertainment. But me, I have a responsibility to put out something in the world that can impact positively. So I decide to be very real. Sometimes I don't have makeup on. Sometimes I'm sweating from the gym. Sometimes I'm crying. And other moments I'm strong and I just like to live my life as real as possible without the Photoshop emotionally or physically, because I have daughters and I want them to be able to see my content. Whenever I'm putting out content, whether it's a book or a video, I want my daughter to see it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and her be inspired by her mom.
Your fans have come to see you speak live by the thousands. What message alike do you enjoy inspiring them with, no matter their path or passion, be it to write a book of their own or find their way through a tough time reading yours?
Getting to feel the room, really, I have so many different aspects of my life that I could speak about, whether it's SADV, post-traumatic stress disorder, that I like to read the room, and that moment where you capture it and speak to people directly. When people come after and say, you spoke directly to me. I didn't even want to come, but I came, and now I know you, like, you were here for me. When people feel that, then I'm like, hey, then I've done my part. So it can be a room of 10 people or it can be thousands, and I get just as excited because I'm searching for the girl I used to be, for that broken girl that thought she'd never have a healthy marriage or be healthy. And I'm searching for her, and I always find her in the room or him, and sometimes it's several. And so to me, that's the exciting part for me.
Finally, in closing, what do you say specifically to those who do have their own story they want or need to get out of their heart and head and onto the page?
I read for entertainment, and I saw how much it changed my life. So if you are writing a story that is fantasy, that is sci-fi, and you may think, well, how is this really going to help someone? Keep in mind that for people like us that are surviving, your story can be the story that we go to instead of ours for just a minute. So get creative. Anything that comes out different, take it, because you can. For me, for people like me, The Babysitter's Club, Wuthering Heights, all those books saved me. They were my coping mechanism. And so it's more than just entertainment. Even if it's a romance novel, do it, go for it, go all the way, and know that you're having an impact. Um, and for me, I loved reading for entertainment, but I didn't allow myself to fall into that routine. I saw what they were doing. I studied them. I studied all the greats. I saw their style, and in them, I found my own. So what's super interesting is just keep your own style. We all love the Edgar Allan Poes, and then but there's something in you. So I believe it's important to be connected to the past, know the present and find yourself in it, because I know they say there's nothing new under the sun, but if you bring something unique, bring it all the way, no shame, be different. And sometimes that can mean separating yourself from the greats so that you don't imitate them, and really do something on your own.
Rosie, it's been inspiring talking with you today. Thank you so much for taking out time to be on About the Authors TV.
Thanks, Jake. Take care.